The lies about Shedeur Sanders came fast, loud, and calculated. One headline said he was too entitled. Another claimed certain teams, like the Ravens and Eagles, weren't even interested. Then, as if on cue, insiders started whispering that Shedeur had preferences about where he wanted to play, painting him as some spoiled rookie trying to dictate terms before he's even drafted. And just like that, the smear campaign was in motion. But let's pause right here. Where is this all really coming from? Because Shedeur hasn't been out here throwing tantrums. He hasn't been giving diva interviews or making demands. On the contrary, he's been calm, poised, and focused on his craft. So why is the NFL media trying so hard to frame him as a problem?
If you're into the real story and all the messy twists they don't show on highlight reels, go ahead and subscribe. And if you're sticking around to see how this Browns QB chaos plays out, you should definitely be subscribed.
That's where Deion Sanders steps in. Coach Prime didn't just sit back and watch his son get dragged. He called it what it is. A deliberate attempt to manipulate narratives, control public perception, and protect the league's interests. And when he spoke, he didn't sound like just a proud dad. He sounded like a man who's seen this game before, who knows exactly how the NFL media machine works, and who's had enough of it. Because let's be real, the NFL doesn't just report stories. It creates them. And Shedeur Sanders has become the latest example of how carefully timed leaks and sources can be weaponized to alter a player's reputation before he even sets foot in the league. Think about the playbook. First, you build hype. You get people talking about Shedeur as a potential franchise quarterback, a top draft pick, the kind of player teams should be drooling over. Then, just when the buzz is peaking, you cut him down. Suddenly, whispers appear about his attitude. Suddenly, big-name teams are reported to be not interested. Suddenly, he's not just a player anymore. He's a problem. That's not journalism. That's strategy. And the timing? Absolutely no accident. You notice how these stories don't drop in the middle of a slow week? They always land when eyes are on Shedeur. Right before the draft heats up, right after a tough Colorado game, right when media cycles need a juicy hook. The goal isn't to tell the truth. The goal is to shape it. This is where Adam Schefter comes in. The man is treated like the holy grail of NFL news. When Schefter tweets, it gets plastered everywhere. ESPN, Bleacher Report, podcasts, YouTube shows, you name it, they run with it. But here's the dirty little secret. Schefter doesn't just stumble across info. He's fed info. Carefully chosen, deliberately timed info. Teams and the league know exactly what they're doing when they hand him a story. They're not giving him facts. They're giving him weapons. And this time, those weapons are pointed directly at Shedeur Sanders. Why? Because Shedeur is dangerous to the system. The NFL thrives on the idea that players come in as raw talent, and the league makes them into stars. That's how the shield stays bigger than the player. But Shedeur isn't walking into the NFL as a blank canvas. He's already a brand. He's already media trained. He's already got fans' attention. And most importantly, the backing of Deion Sanders, one of the most charismatic, outspoken figures in sports history. Shedeur doesn't need the NFL to build him. And that's a problem for a league obsessed with control. So how do you deal with a player who's already a star? You try to cut him down before he even gets there. You frame confidence as arrogance. You twist composure into entitlement. You turn leadership into preferences. You do whatever you can to make sure the player doesn't walk into the NFL too powerful, too polished, too independent. And that's exactly what Deion is calling out. He's not just saying, stop picking on my son. He's saying, stop lying. Stop manipulating. Stop using players as pawns in your branding game. He's ripping the mask off the system and daring fans to see it for what it really is. Because let's be honest, if Shedeur's name wasn't Sanders, would we even be having this conversation? If he wasn't already famous, already marketable, already carrying a legacy, would insiders be so desperate to spin him into a villain? Probably not. The only reason this is happening is because Shedeur represents something the NFL can't control. But here's the part the league seems to forget. The game doesn't lie. They can tweet whatever they want. They can plant as many whispers as they want. They can spin headlines until fans are dizzy. But none of that changes what Shedeur has already done on the field. Let's talk facts. This is a quarterback who played behind one of the weakest offensive lines in college football. Week after week, he was pressured, hit, and sacked. And instead of folding, instead of panicking, he stood tall. He made throws under pressure. He led his team with calm and precision. He put NFL-caliber plays on tape against impossible odds. That's not arrogance. That's resilience. That's leadership. And that's the truth the NFL can't spin away. Because no matter how many sources say otherwise, no matter how many headlines try to paint Shedeur as entitled, the tape is there. The poise is there. The accuracy is there. The leadership is there. He's not a problem. He's a solution. He's the kind of quarterback teams dream of. And that's why this entire smear campaign is as transparent as it is ridiculous. Let's also not forget, this isn't the first time we've seen this play. Warren Sapp had his draft stock tank because of character concerns that conveniently appeared right before the draft. Lamar Jackson was told to switch positions, despite being one of the most electrifying quarterbacks college football had ever seen. Cam Newton was dragged for smiling too much. Different names, different decades, same tactics. And now it's Shedeur's turn. But this time, there's one big difference. Deion Sanders is standing right there, refusing to let it slide. He's saying the quiet part out loud. He's exposing the game as it's being played. And in doing so, he's forcing fans to ask the question, if they're lying about Shedeur, who else are they lying about? That's why this moment matters. It's not just about one draft prospect. It's about the integrity of the entire system. If the NFL can manipulate narratives as easily, if insiders can be weaponized as effectively, then how many players' careers are being shaped not by their talent, but by the stories told about them? And here's where it gets poetic. Because at the end of the day, the NFL can control the headlines, but it can't control the scoreboard. The game will tell the truth. It always does. And when Shedeur Sanders steps onto that NFL field, when he starts winning games, when he proves exactly why he's been hyped all along, all these lies will collapse. They'll look exactly like what they are, desperate attempts to control a story that was never theirs to tell. So let the insiders talk. Let the leaks drop. Let the whispers swirl. Because none of it changes what's coming. Shedeur Sanders isn't entitled. He isn't arrogant. He isn't some overhyped coach's kid. He's a quarterback who has earned everything, who has faced pressure most players will never know, and who has come out sharper for it. He's ready. And no headline can take that away. Now, I want to hear from you. Do you think the NFL media is deliberately undermining Shedeur Sanders? Do you believe the leaks are truth, or do you see them as manipulation to protect the league's brand? Drop your thoughts in the comments, because this isn't just about one player. It's about how the game we love is being controlled. And if you're done being spoon-fed narratives, and you want the truth behind the headlines, hit that subscribe button. Because the media may lie, the insiders may spin, but the game never lies. And Shedeur Sanders is about to prove it. Let's zoom in on the so-called problem child narrative that's being pushed. Think about it. You've got insiders hinting that Shedeur is entitled because he supposedly doesn't want to play for just any team. You've got reports saying certain franchises aren't interested, framing him as unwanted. You've got whispers about his attitude that don't line up with a single thing we've actually seen from him in interviews or games. Does this sound like coincidence? Or does it sound like an orchestrated smear designed to cool the hype around him? And why Shedeur? Why not another quarterback prospect? Because Shedeur comes into this league with more leverage than most rookies ever dream of. He's already famous. He's already built a brand. He's already got nil money, fans, and a father who's a living legend in sports. He doesn't need the NFL to validate him, and that terrifies the league. The NFL wants rookies to come in humble, malleable, and dependent. They want to be the ones to build you up, so they can take the credit. But Shedeur walks in already a story, already a draw. He doesn't need their stamp of approval, and that makes him dangerous to their system. So what's the move? You knock him down a peg. You don't go after his stats, because those are solid. You don't attack his skill, because the tape speaks for itself. Instead, you go after his character. You make people doubt his attitude, his humility, his fit. You make executives wonder if drafting him will mean distractions. It's not about truth. It's about planting enough seeds of doubt to keep him in check. And who better to deliver those seeds than guys like Adam Schefter? Schefter doesn't just report the news. He sets the tone. A single tweet from him can send shockwaves through the entire league. And the timing of these tweets about Shedeur is too perfect to ignore. They're not random. They're dropped at critical junctures, right before big games, right when draft talk is heating up, right when the spotlight is brightest. It's no accident. It's calculated. Now, let's be crystal clear. Shedeur Sanders has shown nothing but composure under pressure. This is a quarterback who's been hit more times than most prospects could survive behind that Colorado O-line, and he never once folded. He stayed cool. He made his reads. He delivered NFL-level throws while running for his life. That's not arrogance. That's toughness. That's not entitlement. That's leadership. And yet, the headlines don't talk about that. They talk about attitude. They talk about fit. They talk about team preferences. Why? Because those narratives are easier to weaponize. They're subjective. They're slippery. You can't argue with them the way you can argue with stats or tape. They're designed to stick in your head and make you doubt the truth that's right in front of you. This is why Deion Sanders is so furious. He's not just protecting his son's name. He's exposing the entire game. He's saying out loud what players have whispered for years, that the NFL and its media allies don't just cover stories. They create them. They manipulate them. They bend them to fit the league's priorities. And they don't care if it costs a player's reputation. And don't forget, the NFL's priority isn't player development. It's branding. It's jersey sales. It's ticket sales. It's TV deals. The league makes its money by controlling storylines. And if that means pushing a negative narrative about Shedeur Sanders to protect their brand, so be it. They'll do it without hesitation. But here's the part they're not ready for. Shedeur Sanders is built for this. He's been living under the harshest spotlight imaginable since he was a kid. He's been doubted, criticized, and targeted before. He knows how to stay calm, how to block out the noise, how to let his game do the talking. He's not some fragile prospect who's going to crumble under pressure. He's already weathered storms most rookies haven't even seen yet. And the truth, the real truth, will come out on the field. Because at the end of the day, the NFL can spin headlines all it wants. But the game doesn't lie. When Shedeur steps onto that field and starts dropping dimes, when he leads drives, when he shows the same poise he's always shown, the narrative will crack. The lies will collapse under the weight of his performance. That's why this whole smear campaign feels so desperate. Because deep down, the league knows it can't control what happens on the field. It can only try to shape what happens off it. And that's exactly what Deion is calling out. This isn't just about Shedeur. This is about a system that's been pulling the same stunt for decades. Warren Sapp, Lamar Jackson, Cam Newton, different players, same story. Leak a negative narrative. Let the media run wild with it. And suddenly a player is fighting ghosts that never should have existed in the first place. But this time it's different. This time, the player isn't alone. He's got Deion Sanders standing right next to him, refusing to let the machine run unchecked. Prime time is saying the quiet part out loud, and in doing so, he's forcing fans to confront a truth they might not want to admit. The NFL doesn't just play football. It plays narratives. It plays perception. It plays with players' careers like chess pieces on a board. So here's what we need to do as fans. Stop swallowing every headline like it's fact. Question the timing. Question the source. Ask who benefits from this story being told. Because 9 times out of 10, the answer isn't the player. It's the league, the teams, the insiders. And when it comes to Shedeur Sanders, the truth is clear. He's not entitled. He's not arrogant. He's not some spoiled kid trying to game the system. He's a quarterback who's earned his place, who's proven his toughness, and who's ready to lead. The lies being told about him aren't reflections of who he is. They're reflections of how desperate the league is to control what it can own. So let the insiders tweet. Let the whispers spread. Let the headlines run. Because when Shedeur Sanders steps onto that NFL field, when the ball is snapped and the game begins, the truth will shine through. And it won't be the NFL's version of the story. It'll be his. Let's remind ourselves what the actual lies are. They're not coming in one big dramatic headline. No, they're subtle, carefully timed jabs. Sources say the Ravens aren't interested. The Eagles won't be pursuing Shedeur. Shedeur has preferences about where he wants to play. Some scouts question his attitude. Notice the pattern? None of these are about ability. None of these are about what he's done on the field. They're about perception. They're about planting doubt. They're about shaping how you think of Shedeur before he even walks onto an NFL field. And that's the genius and the sickness of this strategy. Because it doesn't matter whether these reports are 100% true, 50% true, or flat out fabricated. What matters is that they get repeated enough times that they feel true. Fans debate them. Talk shows dissect them. Executives let them creep into their subconscious. Before long, they're not just reports. They're reality. But let's hit pause. Who exactly benefits from these so-called reports? Because Shedeur sure doesn't. He doesn't need his name dragged through the mud. He doesn't need whispers about entitlement shadowing him into the draft. So who does it serve? The league, the teams, the insiders. The NFL benefits because it keeps the shield bigger than the player. Teams benefit because they can justify passing on him, or snag him later than they should, for less money and less pressure. Insiders benefit because their tweets generate clicks, engagement, and attention. Everyone wins, except Shedeur. And here's what makes it sting. Shedeur Sanders has done absolutely nothing to deserve this narrative. Nothing. On the field, he's been the definition of poised. He played behind an offensive line that might as well have been tissue paper, and he didn't crack. He delivered NFL-level throws under constant duress. He stayed calm, stayed composed, stayed professional. That's not arrogance. That's maturity. That's not entitlement. That's leadership. But the NFL doesn't want to celebrate that. Why? Because Shedeur is walking into the league already bigger than the role they want him to play. He's not a blank slate they can develop. He's not some anonymous rookie they can slowly build into a star. He's already a star. He already has fans, attention, no money, and a legacy. And the NFL hates nothing more than a player it can't control. This is where Deion Sanders comes in. Prime knows the playbook. He lived it. He was a flamboyant, unapologetic, superstar athlete who was constantly called selfish when really he was just ahead of the curve. He knows what it's like to be framed as a villain because the league couldn't own him. And now he sees the exact same thing happening to his son, and he's not having it. That's why his words cut so deep. He's not just saying, "Don't talk about my son like that." He's saying, "Stop lying. Stop manipulating. Stop using players as pawns." He's pulling back the curtain on how the NFL uses insiders like Adam Schefter to drop stories at the exact right time to shift the narrative. And the second you start questioning that system, you realize how deep it goes. Because this isn't new. Think back. Warren Sapp had character concerns leak just before the draft. Lamar Jackson was told to switch positions. Cam Newton was criticized for smiling too much. Each time, the narrative wasn't about talent. It was about control, about making sure the player didn't enter the league on their own terms. And Shedeur Sanders is just the latest target. Now, let's talk about Adam Schefter for a second. The man has built his career on being the guy who knows. He tweets something and it's treated as absolute fact. But here's the truth. Schefter isn't just reporting news. He's delivering stories someone wants him to deliver. His sources aren't random. They're carefully cultivated relationships with teams, agents, and league officials who give him information for a reason. And when he drops a line about Shedeur, you better believe it's because someone somewhere wanted that narrative out in the world. And yet, fans eat it up. They don't stop to ask, why now? Or who benefits? They just see the tweet, retweet it, debate it, and suddenly the smear becomes a story. That's how players get undermined. That's how reputations get hijacked. That's how the NFL maintains control. But here's the part that makes me smile. The game doesn't lie. The NFL can twist headlines. The media can spin narratives. Insiders can leak all the sources in the world. But when Shedeur Sanders steps onto that field, when he starts throwing darts, when he shows the same poise and toughness he's already proven in college, none of that spin will matter. Because the game doesn't care about headlines. The game only cares about performance. And Shedeur has already shown he's got it. That's why this smear campaign feels so desperate. Because deep down, the NFL knows it can't stop Shedeur from proving himself. They can only try to make the path harder. They can only try to stack the deck against him. But talent like his, it breaks through. And that's why Deion Sanders is going to war with this machine. He's not just defending his son's honor. He's exposing the system for every young player who's ever been run through the same cycle. He's saying, we see you, we know what you're doing, and we're not playing along. Think about how powerful that is. Because usually players just keep their heads down. They ignore the noise. They let their play do the talking. But Deion, he's not letting it slide. He's calling out names, calling out tactics, calling out the whole corrupt playbook. And in doing so, he's forcing all of us, fans, media, teams, to ask ourselves the uncomfortable question. Are we complicit in this? Do we accept every headline as fact without ever asking who want us to believe it? Because that's the real test here. Not just whether Shedeur can prove himself on the field, spoiler. He can, but whether fans can start to see through the lies. Whether we can demand fairness, demand transparency, demand a system that evaluates players on what they do, not on what someone whispers about the behind the scenes. Because Shedeur Sanders is not entitled. He's not arrogant. He's not some overhyped coach's kid. He's a quarterback who has earned every ounce of respect he's getting, who has battled through pressure most prospects will never know, and who has come out sharper for it. So let the insiders talk. Let the whispers spread. Let the lies pile up. Because when Shedeur steps onto that NFL field, when he starts winning games, when he proves exactly why he's been hyped, the truth will outshine every smear. And that's the part the NFL media machine can't control. Now I want to ask you, do you think the NFL media is deliberately targeting Shedeur Sanders? Do you believe Deion's claim that this is a calculated smear campaign? Or do you think this is just business as usual in the league? Drop your thoughts in the comments. Because this isn't just about one player. It's about the way the league manipulates all players. And if you're tired of being fed spin instead of truth, hit that subscribe button. Because while the insiders leak their stories, we'll be here tearing them apart. The NFL may try to twist Shedeur Sanders' story into something it's not. But when the lights come on and the ball is snapped, the truth will be undeniable. The media lies, but the game never does.